Okay, we're going to start working now on our chapter 1 or unit 1 exercises, and the first exercise that we have to complete is exercise 6. And the instructions for this one say, write, compile, and test a class that displays the first few lines of the lyrics of your favorite song. Save the class as songlyrics.java. As you work through the programming exercises in this book, you'll create many files. To organize them, you might want to create a separate folder. Thank you, author. Doesn't that sound like what I was just telling you guys, but I gave you like a little bit more of a speech. And so in this case, please remember, you don't have to pre-create the folder for this. Eclipse will create it for us, right? So we're going to create a new Eclipse project, and then that will create the folder for us. So I'm going to go over to Eclipse. And if you want, if you have all your UDoITs open, you can actually come up here and close these all down. And that's what I'm doing. I'm closing all these extra tabs. I'm also going to come up here in my Package Explorer, and I'm going to collapse the triangle for the UDoIT exercises because I'm done with those. And let's not waste the space.
I can't see your screen, Ty.
With that. Thank you for reminding me. So here is the screen share. And hopefully the recording recorded the right stuff here. I'm assuming it did. But now that I'm here in Eclipse, I am going to begin by creating a new project. So I'm going to begin with this little first icon here. Hit the drop down and then choose Java Project. In this case, we're working on the chapter 1 exercises. So you know what? That sounds like a good name to me. So chapter 1 exercises. Right. There's no other selections we need to make here. Just go ahead and click finish. And now you'll notice in the left sidebar that it added that project to the Package Explorer. I am now going to right click on that project and I'm going to create a new class file. And we were told what to name this. This is called Song Lyrics. And they wanted you to call it .java, but .java is added automatically to the file name. You just need to type the name. And then, hey, let's save a little bit of time here and click public static void main. That checkbox right there to save us a little bit of code typing. The package declaration is left blank. Clicking finish. And now on the left sidebar here, you will see the song lyrics.java. Now, I'm not really quite sure what song I'm going to use, and those of you that have me in Python class, I think I usually use Beatles songs or something that most people know. This page is at the very end of chapter 1. I couldn't give you an exact page number. Page 45 per Matt. Thank you, Matt. Right, so we're starting with exercise 6. If you want, you could put comments at the top saying, exercise 6, page 45. My name is blah, 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 blah. Today's date. If you want, if you want to do this stuff, I really kind of don't care if you do it now. Is it a good practice? Probably.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes, Alex.
When I pull up the file,
Oh, you're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep. No.
Okay. When I try to run the program, I already did it. When I try to run it, it doesn't let me. It says it gives me an option.
Oh, you muted again.
I have to. When I run it, it doesn't let me. It gives me an option that says like ant build or something, and it says select what to run.
Okay, and are you using Eclipse?
Yeah, but sometimes I like accidentally move the source file and it kind of like messes everything up.
It does. And you know what, Alex, that's a really good point. When Eclipse is auto-creating components through the dialog boxes, you should not go into the file system and then move them around because it does mess up Eclipse. So what happens when you create a project in Eclipse is it basically registers every little bit and piece. And if you start breaking that structure that it's creating, it throws problems. Now, the ant build thing might necessitate you rebuilding this. So it might not be a bad idea to just recreate it and maybe call it song lyrics too, just as a thought, following my techniques. And then you can always go to your original and copy in your code. But then that will be correctly registered with the project. Now, we already know how to do an output statement, you guys, and the basic approach is system.out.println with parentheses and a semicolon, and then, of course, a set of double quotes inside. Now, I want you to think about this. If I want to get words on the screen, I just type them between the double quotes. Okay, that's great if you're doing one line. But now if I'm doing song lyrics, I'm going to do this over and over again, right? For at least a few lines. So I might suggest that you actually just type this little bit, copy it, and then paste it in a few times. Maybe, 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many lines there are in the song that you want to share. But I think I'm going to kind of stick with, I'm trying to, think of like some lyrics here. Of course, when you try to think of it, that's when you draw a blank. But, when you're at home, you can think of your favorite lyrics. Or you know what? You can just Google them and copy the lyrics from there, honestly. But here, I'll do the same thing I did in the Python class. So here we go. This is a Beatles song, by the way. She loves you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right? Oops. Yeah, I didn't mean to add all that. And then I'm going to, the second line of the song is the same thing. Third line of the song is the same thing. The fourth line of the song is, I think, just yeah. So I'm being a little silly because that's a pretty easy one to do. But hey, whatever you're into, if you're like you write your own music, you want to share your lyrics, that's fine. You have a favorite artist or whatever, just look something up. We don't need a lot of lines here. What I'm looking for is really that you get the concept of being able to do multiple outputs. And what you guys are going to notice as I do this, I'm going to save my code. I am going to come up here and hit the run button. And here's my output. So it did work. This is really kind of, the grand takeaway. It's like, can I make the command run multiple times? And then each time I run the command, I want you to also notice that it's printed on a new line. So when I run the command print line, it prints one line of text. The next print line command prints another line of text. And you know what? I do get people that ask, what if I want to keep it on the same line? Well, then you just use the print command, not print line. And so I could do system print, type out a word, system print, type out a word, and they're both on the same line. We'll see that in an exercise coming up, by the way. So this is the first exercise, folks. This is exercise 6, successfully completed. How's it going? Good.
Very well.
Okay, excellent. That's what I was hoping to hear. Now keep in mind, because I am trying to plow through all these exercises before we leave, and there's not a lot of time, that these videos will be out there for you to witness, in the aftermath of this, and you still have until midnight on Friday to finish this stuff. And my old videos are already out there, so you can follow those as well. Okay, moving on to the next exercise. The next exercise, exercise 7, says, write, compile, and test a class that displays your favorite movie quote, the movie it comes from, the character who said it, and the year of the movie. Okay, well that gets, you guys are gonna have to Google, right? And so I'm gonna speculate on one. All right, so here we go. So I'm gonna now come back to my project, and I'm gonna right-click the project again. I'm gonna say new class. Same dialog as before, leaving the package declaration as blank. And now I'm going to name this, it's called movie quote, right? Is that what they want? Movie quote. We are going to pre-create public static void main and click finish. Now, this to me does sound a lot like what we just did. Can you guys agree on that, right? In fact, if you didn't copy and paste anything since you copy and pasted system out print line, here's the good news. You can paste it again here a few times to do the same thing. Oh no, I see, I did, she loves you, yeah. No, not happening. So I do want to retype system.out.println parens semicolon and a pair of double quotes. And once again, here's the strategy. I realize I'm going to have at least 4 lines of output here, maybe 5 or 6, who knows? So I'm going to copy this and paste it back in a few times, maybe even more times than I need it. I can always get rid of it. All right. So what are the instructions again? That displays your favorite movie quote, the movie it comes from, the character who said it, and the year of the movie. Okay, so I could take that really literally. So so some people will say, favorite quote. Maybe do this. So I can't think of any quotes from my favorite movie. Is that pretty sad? Oh, yes, I can. But they're not polite ones. Okay, so right, so they're not ones that are good. But here's kind of one of the challenges they're giving you is they're asking you to quote something inside of quotes, right? And so I'm already using double quotes for my statement, so I have to use single quotes for the thing that I'm quoting. And I'm just gonna kind of like, I'm not sure really how to type this. Yippee ki blank, 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 blank. You guys know what movie I'm talking about? Okay, yeah. Best Christmas movie ever. That's a Harry Potter movie? No. The movie it comes from.
And that's Die Hard.
Yeah. Yeah, Die Hard is the movie.
He said in Die Hard too.
Don't they say it in all? Well, I don't know. Honestly, this is really funny. I went to Starbucks right before Christmas, and how like the people there are always like trying to make small talk. I'm like, oh hey, how are you doing? How's your Christmas going? It's great. Hey, what's your favorite Christmas movie? Like, that was like their pitch line. I'm like, Die Hard. Yeah, but there's like a generational difference. So for my generation, that makes sense. And yes, it is actually a Christmas movie. Character who said it? What's the guy's name? Yeah, thank you. See, I'm typecasting all of you is what I'm doing. John McClane, retired New York City police officer. Movie, year of release. I'm going to speculate like 1984. I'm not going to look it up. I'm just typing 1984 because it sounds good. And here's another little tip, and I'm doing this really more for demonstration. Is these lines that are left blank? Here, kind of an interesting thing here. You can actually take those and insert them in between stuff. And then I'm also kind of leaving a blank line in the code. So this is kind of like a multifold demonstration here. So, and actually I shouldn't leave a blank line here. I do want to demonstrate what happens when you start putting blank lines in your code. So here, we know this is going to print out, but what's this going to print out? Yeah, a blank line, right? This is going to print out a blank line. What's this going to print out? Nothing. The white space is ignored. There's no error, right? There's not going to be an error. If there was an error, it already would be underlined red. So I'm going to control save this, and then I'm going to go hit the run button, and here's the output. So if you look really carefully at the output here, here's the favorite quote, a blank line, because I asked for one, right? This is going to print a line, whether or not I put text in it. Printed the next line and another blank line. Printed the next line. My code is separated with a blank line, but that doesn't print because we didn't tell it to print. So the output does exactly what you tell it to do. It doesn't mimic, the spacing that you create in your code document. Right. And really, and here's kind of the interesting thing about Java is the reason we indent and put spaces around things is for our benefit, not for the computer code. And that's kind of a takeaway. So that's exercise number 7, you guys. So you see how quick these kind of go? The next one's kind of like a little bit more of like game-like, and as are a couple of the next ones, which is basically we're creating what we call ASCII art, and that's like where we take keyboard characters and then we use them to create graphics. And there's actually like a whole school of people that do this kind of like for real and like make some pretty impressive stuff using all the characters on the keyboards. I don't know why, but they do it, right? And I'm sure you guys have maybe seen that. But what we're trying to do is create this table and chairs. And so I'm kind of looking at this image, and the first thing I'm going to do is like, all right, well, this should be pretty easy, right? Because it's like, looks like I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code. So 6 system out print lines. But then I'm counting X's going across. So I'm like, well, it's kind of hard to tell how many X or spaces I need here, but I do have some clues. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Maybe 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. 26 characters across is what I'm counting. Okay. So why is that important? Because if I have an X here and an X there, I need 24 characters in between to get the same graphic. So I'm trying to replicate this as closely as I can. So here we go, folks. Once again, right-click, new class file. What are we calling this? Table and chairs, I think is the name. Table and chairs. And I want you to notice here, as we're adding secondary words to the file name, how the first letter of each is capitalized. It's kind of a convention in Java. Public static void main, right? And a little cheating. So I'm going to go back to my previous program where I already have a blank system out print line waiting to be copied. Yeah, nothing wrong with copying code. Control C to copy. Back over to the current tab. I'm going to get rid of the comment here. And I'm going to paste in, how many lines did I determine top to bottom? Yeah, I lost count already. Well, 26 going across, but it was 1, 2, 3, 6. 6 lines going down. So I'm going to paste that 1, 2, oops, but on separate lines. Why do we do it on separate lines? Well, because all the system out print lines, and I see I'm doing it again. Didn't hit enter. This way, get your mouse going. Just doesn't want to print there. All right. But because these are all lined up, it should be pretty easy to replicate that. And so what I determined, I'm going to do this all with capital X's, by the way. So that's 1. And then I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. And an X. Hopefully I did that right. It might be horrifically bad, but you know what? I'll improvise. You know what? The next one, if I look at this graphic, that happens twice in a row. So you know what? I got to type that again. I'm going to copy it. And this is part of like what programmers do too, is they see where they don't have to do the work again and be able to copy something or reuse something. That's part of the strategy of all this. Now the next line is a little bit different. So here's where I'm going to kind of split screen again, because I want to be able to look at both of these at the same time. And you know what? Let's get a little kind of strategic here. I want to be able to see all of that. So this next line looks like I go, oh gosh, I don't even know how many that is, but 1, 2, 3, 4 X's, and then 3. That's 7 before I hit the X. So I'm going to do an X, and then, oops, uppercase X, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Then I'm going to make X's, and it looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 X's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Right? Then 3 spaces, or 7 spaces. Well, the finishing X is easy. I just line it up with the other, right? Looks pretty good so far. The next line is the one that's probably got the most number of X's here. So we'll start with an X. And then we do, I guess, 5 total, 3 spaces, 1 X. We're starting the legs, and then we're doing spaces, oops, line up the leg with the table. And then we're doing 1, 2, 3, and then the top of the chair. Right. Then we'll move to the next line. Excuse me. We'll do X, some spaces. Now it gets easy because we're just lining up the X's. Now, you guys might not be completing this as fast as me. Please keep in mind, I've done this exercise before. You know, I don't remember the counts, but you know, it's kind of just really a matter of practice. And you know, some people will latch onto this quickly. For some of you might have to do a little trial and error on this to get it to work right, and that's okay. If you don't get it right now, just go back to it and fix it later. But that looks pretty good. But the general point is this: when we're inside of a system out print statement, the spaces that we're going to type count, right? They do. They count as output to the screen. So here comes my saving, and now the running of the program, and watch the output screen, and now you see the tables and the chairs. Of course, in your screenshot document, you know, if you're doing this, right, you should be, you type the exercise name, you create a new screen grab, here's the code, copy, paste into the document, right? Might even be too big. Usually not a problem though, it's too big. Too small is usually the problem. Then another new one for the code output to show me it worked. Copy that, put that into the screenshot document also, and then, you know, words, you know, telling me what I'm looking at. I just want you, you know, like as you're doing these exercises, that's when you really should be doing the screenshots. All right. So that was exercise table and chairs, which is exercise 8. We're moving on to exercise 9. Well, this one looks pretty similar, right? Same kind of approach, if you will. And this one is basically a triangle of T's. And I think really the key to this one is to count how many T's are at the bottom, because then you know how many to put at the top, right? So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, lucky number 13. Right? So back over in Eclipse, to kind of keep repeating this process so you get comfortable with it, we are going to right-click the source folder, create a new class file. This one's going to be called triangle. Oops, my caps lock is on, by the way. And we are clicking public static void main. There's the beginning of our program. Once again, I'm remembering that I have a blank system out print line in my movie quote program that I'm going to come here and copy again. And then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines of code. So 1, 2, 6. Okay. Same procedure. How many T's did I count? 13. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then for each subsequent row, I'll be adding a space to it. And then when I get here, do I need to put a space here at the end? I really don't. I don't have to actually add that space because it'll be there anyway. And I think that's kind of one of the takeaways of this exercise too. And then you'll notice that, okay, most of the time you work top down. Who says you can't work bottom up? To me, this exercise makes more sense bottom up in terms of getting it right, you know, because I think it's easier to see. And it looks like I'm going to be, I didn't count right, right? I totally didn't count right because that bottom line's got way too many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11, that's, yeah, 13, but it doesn't look the same, does it? Why is it different? Oh, I see. Okay. So I screwed up here. Or did I? I'm looking to see how my T's line up. No, they're all lining up, so I'm going to have to actually add some lines here, is what I'm saying. Oh, it is 7 lines. Okay. Yeah, I counted 6, but it's actually 7 lines. And notice what I did here with the last one. I just copied that one. Yeah, and see, kind of like what they're trying to point out is, like, if you want these all to line up, you don't really need to add the spaces at the end, right? Because those are irrelevant. They don't need to print. All right, so this is exercise 9, the triangle. And once again, I'm going to hit the play button, folks, and see the output. Very fancy. Very, very fancy indeed. These are pretty primitive exercises, but that's okay because this is where we start. It will ramp up quickly, once we get past this stuff. It's really to get you comfortable with creating programs, how this really important statement works, because this is probably a statement you're going to use in most every program you write at some point. I'm assuming you guys are all good. I'm moving on for the sake of time efficiency here. And I'm also checking back at the course show. We're going exercises 6 through 11. So we're almost there. Exercise 10 says, write, compile, and test a class that uses the command window to display the following comments. So they want you to actually use that text. Okay, so I can copy it from here. I'm just going to copy it from my book. Right? Also include the same statement in 3 different comments in the class. So in other words, this is going to go to screen, but I'm also going to include it in comments. Now, one thing that we didn't do during the You Do It's, and I kind of like shortcutted my way around this, is I showed you one method of commenting, but there's really 2 more. And actually, I argue there's even more than that. But the 3 main ways to do it is what we're going to explore here. So first thing we'll start with is, once again, right-click, create a new class file. And this one's going to be called comments. And of course, caps lock is on, so I'm deactivating and retyping. And we are adding our public static void main. Now, the first task that we have is just to put that one statement from the screen into the console window so the program users will see it. So we'll do system.out.println. And then we're kind of faced with a little bit of a conundrum. And here's the conundrum, if you're not realizing it yet, is the statement they're asking me to put here is kind of long. Okay, so it's a little bit longer than what we've been doing. And so I'm going to paste it in. It should still be in my copy buffer. And notice how way off the screen it went. And so what happens with some of you is this happens, right? It goes off the edge of the screen. You guys getting that? And so one thing you can do to kind of work around that is you can either drag this way over so you can see it, or you can go into the preferences and turn on word wrap, which is really what we probably would prefer to do. Or we're going to give you kind of another teachable moment here, is we're going to move this line down to the next line. But in order to do that in Java, what you do is this. I would move this to the next line. So I would take my cursor here and I would press enter in the middle of the line. Do you notice what happened when I pressed enter?
It automatically did the rest of the syntax for you.
Yes, exactly, Anthony. And what it did is it closed the one double quote, left the space there because the space counts. It put in this symbol, the plus sign, and then continued my statement on the next line. It did it automatically. All I had to do was put my cursor in the middle and press enter. The plus sign in this situation is what we call a concatenation mark. Okay, so that's like a fancy computer speak. Concatenation is basically a way to say that we're joining strings of text together. In Java, we use the plus sign. Now, anybody who in here, and I know there's a few people that have taken a Python class, what do we use in Python? All right, time to revisit those Pythons.
Comma, I think.
Yeah, that's correct. It's a comma. So the concatenation, it works strangely in Python, although there are circumstances, and this is kind of interesting in Python, where you can use the plus sign too. Long story, but in Java, which is typical of most languages, that concatenation mark would allow us to continue the statement. That will output all to one line, though. So if that's what you want, that's great. If you want it to output to two separate lines, you can split the statement into two system out print lines and type it that way. Kind of up to you. I'm going to leave it like this. I think this is fine. Now we're going to do the same thing in the form of comments. And so the first type of comment that we learned is you do double slash, right? And then you paste it in. Right? So there it is. So that's a comment. Here's another form of a comment. And so those of you that are web students, right, which should be most of you, you guys remember how to do comments when you're in CSS? Yeah, you haven't learned that yet. You will, but Java also supports what we call multi-line CSS style comments. So in other words, you start with a forward slash and a star, and then you can move it down. You notice what it just did? I just pressed enter at the end of that, and it creates this structure. And really, the truth is the stars in between don't really matter. You can actually get rid of those and it still works. But it's considered kind of like a Java etiquette that you leave those in. But basically, this begins a comment, this ends a comment, and here you can type whatever the heck you want. Okay, whatever. And it can go multiple lines. So that's the second step. That's what we call CSS style commenting. The third technique that we often have, so like sometimes you do stuff like this, like you'll write like a, let's say a system.out.println, and you know, I'm just leaving that one there, and I want to put a comment after it, right? So the double slash techniques actually allows you to do that. So I can just, you know, type a comment here that's non-executing. And what the convenience of that is I can still have my regular statement in place and then put a comment right after it. So once you do those double slashes, anything that follows is ignored. Doesn't matter if it's the beginning of the line or the end of the line. You know, so maybe this isn't a good place for this because really I'm throwing a superfluous statement in here. I could put it up here though. This is fine. And you know, personally, I find that a lot of times if I'm working on code and I just want a little reminder that I haven't finished a part, and I want to come back to it, I usually do something like that. So for example, I might say, you know, like here, this still needs work. It's broken, or whatever, you know, just a note to me. So what are comments? Comments are typically left for yourself to refer back to, because think about this. If I write a program and I spend like a whole bunch of time on it, and I name all this stuff a certain way, step away from that program for 5 years, and I come back to it because I have to fix it for some reason, you think I'm going to remember all the stuff that I did and why I did it, and why I named it a certain way, or why I put it here and not there? You're not. So comments really kind of becomes a tool that we use for ourselves and for anybody that might inherit this code from you. And this is really kind of an important thing. Like, so like in some companies, they have people that make sure that all the programs are commented correctly. So they're paying you all this big money to write software, and they want you to fully comment it and document it and all this stuff so that they can make sure it can be fixed, altered, corrected, whatever for the future. Clever programmers, at least in the past, right, would sometimes write really complicated software, name things in really cryptic ways on purpose, put not one shred of comments in their code. Why? Job security, folks. And then if the program ever breaks, they got to call you back to fix it. And you know what? That'll cost extra. You know, that's kind of like the programmer's thing. So you see kind of both techniques being used. But in professional team programming environments in corporate America, commenting is expected. And some places have really rigid standards about how you do that, including like every time you write a little snippet of code, a complete explanation of everything that goes in there. We kind of saw a little bit of that in the Python class, in the Python people, and those that are still forthcoming to see that will see that soon. Now, notice that I will run this now, and the output of this will only be this text. Yeah, the comments do not execute. If you were able to look into the compiled code, the binary file that was generated by the Java compiler, those comments are not included. They're only in the code file, and that's on purpose. All right, got one more to do before we wrap. Hey, okay, so we're 4 minutes past time. I promise we will be done very quickly here. So this next one says, modify the comments Java program in exercise 10, should be easy, so that the statement about comments is displayed in a dialog box. So we're going to do the GUI output, right? We're going to do a little pop-up box. And so if you guys remember how to do that, we have to come up with an import statement. Now, okay, silly me, I forgot my book at home. I don't know where that is. You know what? Oh, wait, I got my old code here. I can go back to my chapter 1 you do it, and I forget which one of these it is, the dialog box. And I can come in here and I can just copy the import. Why not? I don't want to have to retype. That's a whole lot of extra work. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a new Java program again. It's a new class file. They want us to call this comments dialog. No spaces in there. You can't put a space in there. And public static void main. Now I could, okay, so one thing I could have done is and just to make sure that we're okay with this, is I could have done a save as on this program. That would have been a valid approach too. I decided not to. I wanted to create it from scratch. Now I have that import statement in my copy buffer, so I'm going to paste it in here. That's got to go in. And then I'm going to go back to my comments program, and now I can grab all this stuff here. You know, let's do all that, right? Because we're still supposed to do comments. We'll paste it all in here. I even have that here. Here is that other one, right? So we have all styles. But now instead of doing a system out print line, we instead are going to put this into that other structure, which once again, I'm going to copy from the other program because I'm dumb and I just don't remember or whatever. Right? And I'm going to copy all the parts that I think I should remember. I'm going to copy that much of it. I'm going to go back to my current program. I'm going to replace this statement and clean that up. And, yeah, I think this should be fine. You know? Let's see what happens. Sound good? All right. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to hit that run button. And there comes the dialog box. Woohoo! All right, so we just went through exercises 6 through 11. That's like 6, 7 exercises there. And we did it. I mean, granted, I'm kind of guiding you on this, right? But like the pattern that we will establish going forward is, once again, watch the lecture videos, read the chapter, do the you do it, maybe watching my videos and processes I'm doing them. If you have time, start attempting the exercises on your own. Some people will be very ambitious. And I tend to see that more with the online people than the classroom people. But always understand that next week when we come to class, we're going to go to chapter 2. I expect that you read chapter 2, you watch the lecture videos, and we're just going to dig into code. And we're going to take our time going through that code, right? And when I don't have all this, like, you know, software install, lectures about file management and all that kind of goofy stuff, we can spend so much more time experimenting with the code. So within a couple of weeks, we're fully immersed in coding, right? And you know what? That's you know, to me, that's where it's fun, because then you actually see stuff happen. And if you know, we're really efficient with our time, we can either end class early, or we can totally experiment to our heart's content, or solve any problems that you have. And you know, it's kind of, there's a workflow to it, folks. You know, and as I look around the classroom here, Matt, E, and Abby, you guys have all had me before, so you know how, this is kind of like the Python class, right? The Java class, becomes a little bit different because of the coding techniques, but you will see the correlations there. And ultimately, my goal is to have a really active learning technique where the classroom experience really is our laboratory for completing the homework and actively coding. Right, so, folks, this recording will end here.